Thanks very much, Ben. Thanks, appreciate that. I'd be very interested to hear what the percentage, if you say 13% are not engaged in work, what would be that percentage of people engaged in learning? Would it be even less? That's a big question for us. Okay, so welcome everybody. Thanks for joining this session. I'm very excited to be here. But I have to say, of course, with the topic of microtraining, I'm not used to speaking 45 minutes. Yeah? But I'm not going to be the next to shorten this section. But what we need to do is be a bit more interactive, okay? So I'll do my very best to give you good, valuable input over the next 45 minutes. But really like to start us off with just, I never get this opportunity to get that quick feedback from the market. So just raise your hand. Are you using some sort of e-learning, web-based training in your company? All right, thank you very much. That's good. Who is using mobile learning in your business already? Well, okay. All right. And who has implemented some sort of micro-learning methodology? Wonderful. Okay. Oh, there you go. Our friend from Texas. Okay, brilliant, cool. Okay, like it. Actually, nano learning, maybe even if you guys have the nano degrees in the US, right? So that's even better than micro. All right, very good. Thank you very much. So that's really what I want to talk about. Real brief. You already mentioned microtraining. Of course, we call ourselves a leading provider because we have a very, very tiny niche. So we are, of course, the leaders. But I think we've been on a very exciting journey. We've been doing this for 7 years, and it feels like I've been an evangelist. With a lot of people listening, but not a lot of people getting too excited to buy the services over the last couple of years. Okay, but that's changing. You can see that we're now actually growing as a business, and we get growing attention from a lot of the top companies across Europe, and those are the markets that we operate in today. So the topic that we've kind of carved out together with Janine for this session: how can we improve the engagement of learners? So whether it's 13% or more, we hope that it's more. What can we do? And the other question, of course, is, are microtraining the solution? Well, you forgive me if I'm slightly biased on the second question. So I'm not going to elaborate too much on my belief that microtraining is a solution for almost everything in learning, but I will give you some sort of best practices and case studies in the second part of the presentation, just so that you understand how other businesses have implemented the idea, and I would say it's an idea, it's a concept of micro-learning. All right, so before I dive into how are we going to change, the question is really, you gave some stats, but the question for me is really, where's the problem with learner engagement, right? That's the core. There could be different challenges that we need to look at and address differently. And to us, it's got a lot to do with this goldfish. Some of you know where I'm going with this, right? Yeah, you've seen this Time magazine article, 9 seconds is the attention span of a goldfish. And it was, I think, in 2015 where they said, congratulations, you now have a shorter attention span than this goldfish. It's actually not 8 seconds in that study. And for those who've read the article or seen the study, this was very serious research done by a Canadian team of researchers, and they've worked with 2,000 participants to find how long can they actually focus on one particular piece of information or one impulse, right? And 8 seconds sounds unbelievable almost, I find. But what's even more alarming or more interesting in that study is, if you read it carefully, that has decreased over a 5-year period. They've done this twice. This has decreased from 12 seconds to 8 seconds in 5 years. And that's, to us, is one of the core issues that we try to address with our clients. So there's something changing here, and we need to take this very seriously. Yeah. And this has got a lot to do with, what Eric Schmidt, Google says, well, there's no such thing as information overload. We see that very differently. When we talk to our clients and to organizations, this is the reality that we find, right? 50 billion WhatsApp messages being sent every day globally. I find that outrageous. 50 billion WhatsApp messages every day. And, even more in terms of the office and working context, 2.5 million emails are being sent every second globally. Every second, 2.5 million emails. So that accounts to 81 trillion emails having been sent last year. I find that amazing. So we strongly believe that we live in a world of complete information overload. And we feel that studies clearly show that, as people who try to help organizations learn and develop, we need to get better at finding those windows of opportunities that are being shortened to insert ourselves with the message of, you also need to learn. You need to do all of this stuff, take care of all of your emails, take care of all of those other messages, Messenger and so on. be in meetings, and we've seen that, spend 40% of your time in webinars and online meetings, telcos, plus you need to somehow find time to learn. And the reality that we find is, this is a problem of attention span, but there's more to it. So we call this first problem that I find leads to the question of learner engagement, competition for eyeballs, right? This is Gary Vaynerchuk who says this all the time with regards to marketing. This is a serious issue, right? All of you people have got so much information coming in, all of those emails, all of these WhatsApp messages. How do we as learning people get in front of them and grab their attention? Yeah. The second is this. Quite an obvious problem, I think, right? If you hired a marketing person 20 years ago, they came in with a proper marketing education, you could say, well, that's a good foundation for them to do their work for the next couple of years. I think today that's very much changing. We talked about Udacity and nano-degree programs. Things are speeding up. You need to be ever quicker in updating your professional skills. And that's true for all of us, right? So the life, how do we call it, the half-life of knowledge, is that correct in English? I don't even know, half-time of knowledge or whatever, is reducing, by the year after year. And so we need to not only find that short window where we can grab people's attention for learning, but we also need to do it more often, right? And that's the second challenge that we find. So decaying, knowledge, skill sets are continuously changing for our people, and how do we deal with that challenge as learning and development people? And the third is my favorite, operational excellence. I think HP, he elaborated on that as well, is no longer optional in the world where we go through digital transformation. And everybody in the organization, that's what we strongly believe, needs to get better at things. I think that in the past, many HR departments and learning and development departments have been guilty of focusing a lot on where the big leverage is. Right? We've always trained our management teams, leadership teams, and we've also done a lot of training, extensive training on salespeople. Right? I've been through that myself, more training than you can swallow. But what about the base of an organization? How do we find new ways of training those 80-90% of our workforce that really don't benefit from a lot of formal training today? Is e-learning the solution? Or how can we do it? Yeah, that is the main challenge that we've given ourselves in 2010, and we want to put that pyramid really on its head. We're saying, well, micro-training is very clearly not the solution to train your board members, right? This is not what we're talking about. So you continue running your management training programs, and I'm not questioning any of that, with some of the statements I'll be making today. But we want to focus on all of those people at the point of sale, point of customer, who interact, hotel people, service, even the people, making the rooms. They interact, and how do we get in the face of them in between a very busy time, part-time people and all of that? How can we actually involve them in learning? So that to us is kind of the problems and I think the challenges that we try to address together with our clients, and I hope that resonates with you to some extent. Good. So I think what we need to get to, and I think that's an overall statement, but it's very, very much at the core again of what we believe. We need to somehow make people self-motivated to learn. And I think all of you, and I love the picture of course, but all of you are in this profession, we know that it's a wrong assumption to believe that everybody is willing and happy to learn. And that's even more true for the base of the organization than it is for the management team, right? Management team, we've all been through university and we're quite adept to sitting in a room and listening 8 hours to something new, whereas people on in the manufacturing space or on the shop floor in the retail environment, they may not have had any formal education over the last 10, 20 years. And we now say, well, things are going to change, how we take them onto this journey. And we must not assume that, by default, they are very motivated to learn new things. Because school has not been necessarily a positive experience for many of our people. At least that's true in the German school system. I don't know. May also be true in the UK from what I hear. So that's a challenge. Okay, that's what we try to achieve. So we believe that if we want to increase engagement from learners, there's only one way. How do we create self-motivation to learn? How do we make it more attractive and less boring, really, to tell you the truth? And and this is our analysis of what's really happening in the world today. Okay, the world of corporate learning still very much looks like this. Yeah, and okay, thanks for the laugh, because I sometimes get this like, oh, no, not with us, not with us, you know. But but it's a reality that, of course, I mean, we've learned this, right? We have learned this over the years that, you know, formal training in an organization means send people to a seminar, and it can be a 1-day seminar, 2-day seminar. We work a lot with professional trainers, and they often tell us, oh, 10 years ago I still had those 5-day seminars. That was great, you know. 5 years ago I was still able to sell 3 days, and today all they want is 1 day, maybe 2 days, you know, at the best. Okay, but still, seminar is a setting that we all kind of have in our minds when we go to, you know, say, okay, we need to put together a new training program for our people, send them to a seminar. Now, sometimes you do it in-house already, I realize that, but it's interesting, there was a study in Germany, 2014, how much money is being spent on corporate learning in the German-speaking regions. It's 40 billion euros in total, so it's a big industry, and 52% of that is spent on indirect cost. 52% of all the money spent in corporate learning, it goes into indirect cost. Travel, hotel, catering. So in our mind, it goes directly into the bin. In the world, you know, of 2017, you know, budgets are tight enough for all of us to deal with things. Can we afford to just spend 50% of all of the budget on indirect cost? I think that's dangerous, or at least not ideal, to say the least. And so 50% go into the bin. Okay, that's my analysis of things, a bit overestimated maybe. And then there's a second problem, right? If you send people to the seminar and you know all this, and they learn new things, if over the next 30 days they don't have a chance to recap that knowledge and stay close to this learning experience, stay involved with the new things they've learned, and implement them in their daily routines, well then 90% is lost. Scientifically proven, somewhere between 10-20%, we always say 10% actually stay long-term, and something they can actually take away for their jobs. So in other words, 50% indirect cost, the other 50%, we only have 10% effect, which means that we already operate on a 5% efficiency, don't we, with some of the programs we roll out. And I always like to say, in other words, in other industries, that's actually forbidden by law in Germany. You cannot buy this light bulb anymore because it's so damn inefficient, right? So when we talk to clients, we say, okay, let's talk about the LED of training and development. Okay, so you just need to get more effective. We need to get more out of your budgets. Okay, so how do we actually do that? Well, we have a strong belief that that's not really going to cut it. E-learning, and you've all had your own individual experiences as organizations and as professionals. I think e-learning is really, you know, the whole behavior of sitting in front of a desktop and going through this learning experience has not proven to motivate people. I come back to this question of, are people self-motivated to learn? If you tell them, log into the thing, and there's a video, and there's a multiple choice test, and there's a set of PowerPoints, and then you can do all sorts of funny things on the platform, it's brilliant. It doesn't motivate them. They feel like this. They feel like, oh, really? You know, and I have an interesting observation myself. I've got 2 little boys, 5 and 7 years, and I work a lot from home when I'm not traveling, right? So I always have my little Apple computer on the kitchen table, and I've got this. And my kids don't even pay attention to the damn computer. They're not interested in my laptop. For some reason, they're not attracted by this. You know, they're very attracted by this. I know if you've got kids, you know, the best thing you can do for them is give it to them for 10 minutes to play around with. They love the iPhone, and they don't even know what they should be doing with the computer. So intuitively, I think we all need to think in the direction of mobile. I'm sure that many of you know this picture as well, right? Pope election 2005, Pope election 2013. So the smartphone is not just something that millennials or my kids love to work with and deal with, but all of us, and I see it in this setting again. I mean, not now. I'm really quite excited that nobody's got their iPhone in their hand at the moment, but you know, typically, all of us, we spend so much time with this little mobile device that we need to take this very serious. And if there's not too many hands going up, if I ask, you know, across events, do you use mobile learning? So I think I really want to challenge you on why that is, and you know, can we afford to not be mobile with our learning strategies? Because really, just to give you some facts, I think all of you have probably picked up on the fact the iPhone has just celebrated its 10th anniversary this year. Right? 2007 is really when the whole thing started, the smartphone trend. And I find it very interesting. I need to use this little device now. How do I do this? Oh, I love it. Okay. Whoa. Okay, no, I can't do it. But really, the black line is the personal computer. It took it 25 years to actually be fully distributed globally with 500 million devices approximately. And then the blue line is the smartphones. It's just overtaken the personal computer in a heartbeat, right? Already 5 years ago, more smartphones than personal computers. And that's even I think this is the best news for us, because we believe so strongly in mobile. This is something that if you take anything home, besides my business card and the fact you want to work with us, is this, yeah? This is kind of the operating systems that exist more or less, right? You probably know that Android and iOS, in terms of mobile operating systems, now rule the market. BlackBerry is gone, Windows Phone is gone, all of those things are gone. So 99.2% market share for Android and iOS combined. But I find this very interesting because it compares the stationary operating system, Windows, with the mobile systems. And what you can see here, this is just February 2016 to March 2017, so 13 months. Android has just overtaken Microsoft Windows as the leading operating system in the world. And that's something that nobody knows, I think. Nobody really is aware of this fact. And if you see that trend, so actually Windows has gone from 50% market share across all devices to now only less than 40 in 1 year. And so I think our prediction is that in 3 years' time, when it comes to learning in a corporate environment, Windows and desktop PCs will have completely lost relevance. Completely. This trend is going to continue. So whatever you do in terms of learning technology and software, you got to go mobile. You have to put this on a mobile platform, because that's where the world is going. And why do I kind of reinforce this message? Because I think that all of you are, obviously, you are scouting in the education technology market, and I've brought you this little market map of different learning technology things and brands that you may recognize or not. A lot of interesting stuff out there, and I think there's so much now coming. I mean, just the amount of new startups and new learning apps and new LMS systems, and fully and seamlessly integrate into each other and all the way into your SAP and back. It's very complex, right? So the decision just to purchase technology is an interesting one for all of you, and a very challenging one, I realize that. So the first thing I want to say is, with everything you do, with all of your efforts in terms of education technology, please put on a very strong blinder to say we need to focus on where the mobile development is going. I think that's one takeaway that you can really go home with. Now, but we talked earlier, so implementing technology when you run a company that is global or at least multinational, and you work across many different departments, many different skill sets, and so on, of course technology needs to be part of the answer. Right? So everybody's learning or using some sort of electronic and digital learning platforms already. But with microtraining, you'll be surprised that the way we think about learning with our clients, we don't put technology at the core of it. And what I want to talk to you about is when we talk about microlearning and microtraining, I think at the core of what you and companies should be developing for the future, I think you need to put a methodology in the core. And it's something that's quite distracting to some of our clients, because they say, well, but we don't have one coherent methodology across all of our training, and I can not even imagine doing this, right? But what I want to get to is, if we buy into the story of the goldfish, and into the whole analysis that we need to learn more in less time, and that attention span is limited, and that we somehow need to get in the face of people more regularly with shorter trainings, I think first we need to think about, well, how can we do that? I mean, from a methodology point of view, and I'm talking learning psychology, I'm talking about didactics of a training, because we work a lot with trainers, and we certify trainers. I'll talk a bit about that, and we got hundreds of great trainers in our trainer pool who've been around for 20 years, and they always come to training with their suitcase, and they got 200-300% content they bring to the table, and depending on how that 1 or 2 day seminar goes, they kind of move around. And for them it's an extreme challenge if I tell them, you now have 3 hours only for the seminar. Sometimes even just 2 hours. And you need to bring across a very clear message and have everybody across the organization in those 2 or 3 hour sessions leave with a new skill set. That's a big challenge for trainers, it's a big challenge for all of us, but I think we need to really get our heads around this. If you don't think about chopping up content into more micro-training pieces, it's going to be increasingly difficult to have any learning experience in your organization. Does that make some sort of sense? So, and that's why we feel, okay, so if you buy into this idea of saying, okay, probably yes, we need to take this compliance thing, this big monster folder, and chop it into micro-learning pieces so that people can actually learn bits by bits rather than go into a 2-day compliance seminar and go home and don't know what, anyway, tick that box. If you buy into that overall theory, then we need to talk about, okay, if that's at the core of your belief and of what you do, then we can talk about what technology is right to support that. How do you work with trainers to support that process? How do you create content? Is it going to be, video content? Is it audio content? Is it text? What is the content? And how do we need to shape that content? And last but not least, of course, you need to buy consulting work from us because you won't be able to do it yourself, of course, obviously. But that's really what we do. So we try to really create integrated solutions for our clients, and that's always, I'd like to say that again, if you remind yourself of the pyramid, we're not challenging the things that you're doing already in your organization, but we're saying if you want to develop more learning in your organization, because you understand that there's an increasing need for more learning in less time, well, that's where we come into play, and we think we can build really smart solutions around something that works psychologically, learning in very, very short units, and in a blended format. So really, most of the time, you'll be surprised, we actually insist that it doesn't make sense to just go digital. It doesn't make sense psychologically. You agree with that. You can see that. Good. Many people agree. If you want to say, one of the main challenges I think digitalization brings for many businesses when you're interacting with a client, whether it's in hotels or in a retail environment, is the changing customer behavior, right? Increased expectations, service and communication, all of that. So how do you train people in a, say, retail environment to get better at communicating with those new customers? And I think you can only do that by bringing in this trainer. Just putting people in front of a screen, whether it's a mobile screen or a desktop, it's not going to cut it. They need to try out new things. They need to change their behavior, question their behavior. So that's the challenge that we've given ourselves. Most of the time, it's going to be blended learning. And sometimes we can get away with just mobile learning. It's our belief. Because we all know that, different learning types. So I think if you go purely digital, it's going to be more difficult for people who like to have this communicative learning style, need to learn in a group environment, need to discuss with colleagues. You kind of rob that from them. And that's basically, we've already done that in the school system, right? School system, people who like to read and hear and learn that way, they're fine, but the guys in the back of the room would actually like to discuss things and get around and move and try out things. They're kind of challenged in that way. So it sometimes needs this, or often needs this classroom setting. So talk a bit about technology. In our mind, and that's just the learning technology that we've developed, that we use with our clients. We sometimes actually use third-party software. I get no strong beliefs in that, but the software that we've developed over the years, very simple mobile learning platform called Microtraining app, and basically it's just digital learning cards, good repository for short video content. So what we do to address all the learning types is every microtraining, let's just say 1 hour session, we say we're going to work on, say, retail setting. And the things that we want to implement is we want to have a better address to customers when they walk into the store. So greeting a customer, asking their first question, hello sir, can I help you? And then you would say, no, thank you, I'm just looking. We want to break that pattern and say, hello, how can I help you today? Just ask that different question, just say that that's the 1 hour training that we want to do. Then in that 1 hour training, what we'll have is, we call it a micropaper. So instead of taking a big folder, digital folder of lots of scripts and, PDF documents, we just say there's a 2-3 page document, that's all you need to know about this training, but we expect you to learn it. And then to address people that are more auditive, we put it into podcasts. So we always say there's a micropaper and a microcast. Those are the standard learning documents. And sometimes we'll have video content as well, depending on the client budget. And then you just learn away in the app. And what's beautiful, we've got gamification integrated, we've got chat integrated, so the learning group, usually it's 10 to 15 people that are in a learning setting. Easily they can, as a group, they can chat between themselves, share their experience with that new skill, chat with the trainer can send push messages. So there's a lot in the mobile environment that you can implement very easily, and the point is it comes natural to people. You know? And I can see that you kind of thinking, are we going to be able to implement something like that in our business? And there's a lot of objections and a lot of question marks when you say people need to learn specifically on their own smartphones, right? Bring your own device. Personal, I'm not talking about you need to give everybody a corporate smartphone. I'm talking about they'll do it on their own device because they want to. Rather than sit in front of a screen at the office, even if it's a nice office like the HP just showed us, they prefer to do it when they're on the road, when they're in the airport lounge. They'll just work away in between other things. When I'm done with my social media and nobody's got something to say in Facebook and nobody's sharing anything interesting on Instagram, I'm like in the lounge and saying, oh, 5 minutes of learning, why not? And then I just do it. So that's what our view on technology. And trainer, even more interesting. Just looking at the watch, perfect. Trainer's even more interesting because I say it's a real challenge, Who of you is a trainer by trade? Who's got a trainer certification? Just 1, 2, 3, okay. So I think you've learned how to moderate full seminars, and that's you've got this whole storyline and different exercises you can mix and match together depending on the group dynamics. And if you now boil that down to micro-training, I think you can imagine how difficult it is to get to the point, right? We cannot do 15 or 20-minute introductions. We can't do, what's your expectation, put it on a flip chart and discuss whether we all share the same views. Not going to happen. So how do you create a positive learning environment? And that's really what we've developed over 7 years. We're very proud of it. Cool sessions, and we call it ignition. There's always an ignition session at the very beginning. It takes 5 minutes, and everybody's into learning mode. Everybody's kind of, stepped away from my desk. I'm now in a learning setting. I enjoy it. I'm out for, 2-3 hours later. I'm back at the desk, and I've had a good experience, and I'm self-motivated to learn. And that's what we train trainers on. So we take very good trainers and just teach them how to do it in 2 or 3 hours. That's what we do. And it's an exciting period of time for many of them because the market is changing. Every freelance trainer in the market realizes that, things are changing. I'm not selling those 2 or 3 day seminars anymore. How can I accommodate my clients' needs in the future? So there's a major thing there going on in the marketplace at the moment. So very briefly, before we run over time, I've got 10 minutes left. I want to share 3 little case studies with you just to give you practical ideas on how microtraining can work in organizations. And I've brought one for you, Ben, TFE, yeah? So you know my prospect, you see that. But it's interesting, so this is a group of hotels, and this is a classic example where we haven't gone down the blended learning route, because this is a group of family-owned hotels, 25 hotels in Austria, very nice 4-star little group, and they've always worked together to create learning experiences and shared their learning programs, but they felt, I think many hotels across all of the countries we operate feel that getting new personnel and getting them up to speed, so in other words, onboarding process, is the main challenge. Yeah? I don't know if it's the same with you, but finding people in the first place and then bringing them on board as quickly as possible to be effective in your hotel is the main challenge. And we've created this program where when they sign up with a new employee for the next season, often they're only winter season operating, or very much winter season focused, they've got all of those mobile micro-training courses that they can just send people, signed the agreement now, you're going to be starting in 6 weeks in my hotel down in Tyrol, and here's your courses that you need to learn. So if you're going to be in service, I want you to know everything about our wine list. So that's how detailed it gets, right? We've got 12 wines on the menu. I want you to know if somebody says I want a dry white wine, is it going to be the Chardonnay or the Sauvignon Blanc, or whatever. Yeah? So very customized for the individual hotel. So we just take their wine list, put it into a micro-training course, and that takes no longer than 20 minutes for them to recap those wine lists. And when they come into the restaurant, and that's an amazing experience for our clients, they go like, well, they really know the wine list. And they really know how to answer those questions. So very interesting. And we do the same for the front desk. We even do it for the cleaning personnel and so on. And of course we do it in different languages, because in Austria you're not going to find people who actually speak German for many of those jobs. They're mostly Hungarian. So very easy to do that in Hungarian language, have that translated for our clients. So that's one example of pure mobile learning. I wanted to bring that because it's something that people often associate with what we do. But and that's what it looks like, right? All of the health and safety things are ideal for pure mobile learning. It's very quick, easy, and you have all the documentation done also. Another example is a bank, and I'm bringing that example because it's got to do with social media. I find it's a brilliant example of digital transformation in a very traditional, small bank, a couple of hundred people. So it's a very small regional bank. And again, the challenge HR was kind of formulating for us, which again had to do with recruitment. They said, millennials are looking at us online, and they don't find our people in social media. None of our employees, only 10% are on Xing or LinkedIn. And that's causing a problem. And clients are also expecting to link into their commercial advisors, to their bank advisors, and communicate that way. So that was a big challenge. And they were thinking in terms of, okay, limited budget. This is important for us, but obviously it's not, it's not core of the business. So we're not going to spend 100,000 euros on sending everybody to a 2-day social media seminar. So what we did here is classic 3 hours in groups of 12. And had two of our trainers just focused for a whole week, put everybody through 3 hours, basically of social media awareness training, if you want. And we challenged them, if they wanted to, they'd just bring their laptop or smartphone. And for 50% of participants, we created the profiles within that workshop. Brilliant, very happy customer. And afterwards, they just had an ongoing course over 30 days to now help them actually work with it. So they would be reminded every other day that, hey, have I'm sure you had a client meeting. Have you actually thought about linking in with that person on LinkedIn or Xing after the meeting and just saying thanks very much for the meeting? So those kind of reminders that kind of trigger behavior change and really lead to a lasting effect of those training measures. Very good example of, I think, a nice blended learning format. And the last example that I've brought for you is a bigger project. And I realized that we've got many people that, many of you work for large organizations, multinational organizations. And that's one of our clients, Swarovski. I'm sure everybody knows the product, the retail thing, but it's also very much an industrial company. So 30,000 employees globally across many different countries. And they've taken a strategic decision, of course, to face digital transformation and invest heavily in new automation. So in Austria, where they're based, they're building a completely new factory, 100 million euro project, very much automated. And then they sat in the boardroom and said, okay, so we're going to invest 2 years' time, we're going to have this all set up and change the way we operate and manufacture for our clients in much shorter batches, much more agile, and all of the things that are important to manufacturing companies nowadays. And they said, now what? Because average tenure of our people on the manufacturing floor is 20 years. So we've got a very old, but seasoned personnel in the blue collar area, and they've never had any formal training, never. Right? They've been employed when they were 16 or 18. I've been with Swarovski for 20 years, and now we need to train them on a completely new way of producing, lean manufacturing. And that's a major challenge for an organization like that. So what have we done? Obviously, the production knowledge of a company like that is at the core of their IP. Right? So they're not going to just give us all of their handbooks and tell us how they're producing this stuff and then ask an outside provider to do the trainings. What we've done for them is we said, okay, we need to identify, and that's our work now as an outside provider and consultant. We'll identify good internal people, and there can be department heads, there can be some of your engineers, but it can even be some of the workers on the shop floor that have just been around and so have this natural talent and ambition to do something like a training. And then what we do is we run a train the trainer program. And in our mind, it's not a fully fledged train the trainer program, but it's saying, so you know exactly how to manufacture, and you've done it for 20 years, and you've got the capacity and the will to embrace those new agile things and lean manufacturing. We're going to train you to be able to deliver 1-hour sessions every 4 weeks with your teams on lean manufacturing. And there is 8 different modules, so 8 hours, 8 times 1 hour across a year, so it's 8 months that we've given ourselves for the program. And in between those 1-hour sessions, everybody's invited to work either on their smartphones, or we've given them 200 tablets. So in every social area across the manufacturing plant, there's now tablets laying around with mobile learning devices, and people can just start playing, challenging each other, and so on. So that's the way we address this change program with Swarovski. It's a phenomenal program because we've been surprised how how open people are, when you present this idea, and how many people we've been able to integrate into this internal train the trainer. We call them knowledge architect. So this is the official title with Swarovski. They're Swarovski knowledge architects. It's really cool. They're very proud to be able to do their job within that change program, and I think that's the way forward. To use more of your internal capacities in internal people that want to get involved in learning, and make them into trainers for very short and concise elements of content. You had a question back there?
This 1 hour training was a mixture of present training and of training via mobile and tablet, right?
No, the 1 hour is just the presence seminar setting, and typically in a group of 8 to 12 to 15 people maximum. And the mobile learning is afterwards. It's something that if people were to complete the full course over the 30 days period, they're going to spend roughly 40 to 80 minutes. So another hour, maximum hour and a half of learning. Because basically our app limits people to 5 minutes. After 5 minutes they'll say, thanks very much for doing this, fantastic, you've answered so many questions correctly, take a break, come back tomorrow.
So that means if you make 1 hour training and everyone has to be at the place, and you have in the whole Germany or wherever the workforce, you have to do it regional very much, spread.
Yep. Exactly. So in every manufacturing plant, we've trained people to do it locally. So what they'll do is in the morning before they start their shift, they'll say, we'll have 1 hour of training today. And they do it across many different locations, that's right. Total, we've trained 40 people internally to become those knowledge architects, just in the German-speaking world. And we'll roll that program out now to Thailand, where they also have big manufacturing plants. And that's going to be a challenge for us to do that with Thai language content. So that's a really exciting program. Yeah.
Just a question, whether to check whether I've got it right. So you have divided the non-classroom trainings into nuggets of 5 minutes each?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, basically it's, of course, exactly. So it's learning cards, it's different nuggets, and we encourage people to learn just those 5 minutes. Okay. So you can say, no, I want to continue, so you could, theoretically do the whole course, the whole 60 minutes in one go, but obviously it's not in our interest because we want people to come back regularly.
It wouldn't be realistic, so that they stick to it.
Well, that's actually, in our first, thank you for that question, because we've had our first technology that we had until last year. We didn't have those stoppers, we call them, right, in between the learning. So we didn't remind people that now it's enough. And then what you have typically, you have a group of 15 people, and some are very motivated after the seminar, and they want to go and do the online learning or the mobile learning, and they do all the learning cards in one go. So you have 1/3 of the people completed in one day, which is completely against our goal and what we want to achieve. And then there's another third that never starts, and in the middle there are some that actually do what we thought they were going to do. So we now have put technology in between to at least encourage them to do it the right way. 5 minutes every day.
One more question. My experience is, unfortunately, the responsible people in the HR department, they want to control everything. So that means they want to know when the person learns, what he has learned, and what is the success. So all this micro learnings, do you have a feedback to or a database where it goes back, or it's
of course, of course, you've got the full controlling ability. But my experience is that most of the HR departments actually take that as, now we deal with worker representation, and can we do it without the controlling, please?
Yes.
Yeah. So of course we can track everything. We could tell them everything about everybody. Where they learned, how long they learned, and so on. But it's a tricky, and this is a touchy subject for many larger organizations. SME companies, I agree. If you have 100 people, owner-run business, he will want to know exactly who's done what. And then we've got some people in the logistics field that actually put it on the blackboard, in the hallway. They say, here's top learners, and those are the people that suck. Seriously, they do that. Yeah, sorry.
How did you motivate managers to give people the freedom to learn?
Well, I think
during the working hours. So I think this is a matter of trust.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a matter of, our Bundeskanzler always says alternativlos. I don't know the word for that in English, but they don't have alternatives. They have to do something. And they were faced with the problem. So we're going to invest all of this money in new automation technology, and we need to train people on it. So what are they going to do? Shut down the factory for a week to have everybody go through a full seminar kind of training?
Okay, then
Or
it was
can we-
driven by pressure, so to speak.
Yes,
So
well, I
everybody
think-
had a common interest in make people learn.
Yeah, well, I think in and that's the whole point, you know. I think, are you as an organization, is your management team open to the idea of, yeah, we need to learn more in less time, and we need to get different windows of opportunity for learning on a more regular basis? And that's a discussion that you have to have, and that comes down to culture, right? What the HP person said. We're now managing organizations by changing the culture and influencing the culture, and I think learning is a major component of your corporate culture.
Absolutely.
So it is a major shift for many managements to say we move away from sending somebody to a seminar and now do it, now and then in between, and kind of lose visibility maybe to some extent.
One more question. So we were talking about the control and the data and tracking and so forth from the HR or L&D perspective, but what about the users? Do you recognize, do they know where they are at? How do you recognize their achievements?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. As a learner, you always track your own learning progress. Yeah, I'm aware of time. Thank you very much. So of course you always track your learning progress yourself. It shows you exactly where you are as a percentage, and we've got different, level trainings and gamification features where you basically, encouraged to take certain levels and then have a cool down period and so on. I can show you this later during the next 2 days. Okay, so just need to come to an end to respect time. So I just want to wrap up by saying, here's from my perspective, from our perspective, 3 key takeaways that you can take home. I think very important to say, okay, digital learning is on everybody's agenda, but you got to go beyond technology. Got to go beyond technology and have this human-to-human aspect, and don't forget about the trainer and the importance of interaction in training settings when you start reviewing your strategies. The second, and I hope I made this point very clear, you got to go all in on mobile. Forget about everything that works on a desktop. Everything has to be, created. All software should be created in a way that it works on a small screen. It needs to work on a smartphone, because if we talk about self-motivation of learning, we're very self-motivated to pick up this smartphone and just play around with it. We're not very self-motivated to sit in front of a desktop and just spend time learning, because it's too formal. And last but not least, you got to go micro. I think you have to go and really, discuss that, in your teams and in your organization, whether you buy into this idea of, probably we actually don't have the attention span anymore to spend 8 hours in a seminar and really get something out of it. And if you really open yourself to this idea, well, then you need to think about how can we create more micro content in our organization that's going to be more modularly available for people to learn, in real time and when they need it. Okay? So that would be my 3 key takeaways. Hope you enjoyed that.
I would suggest another one, which means go social. Go social. So my experience is the people, they like to have a competition.
Yeah.
So is that something that I can see, let's say, list who's the first one?
Of course. Yeah, of course. You can play quizzes in here. So we've got tons of different gamification features in there. I can challenge you directly as my colleague and say, I'm better than you. Yeah. I fully agree. So I could continue the list. There's social and there's a lot more. So thanks very much for your attention. Enjoyed that. Ben, thank you very much.